wonderful to have you with me today, Lucienne. I'm so, so grateful. And for those of you that are listening or watching my podcast, welcome, because you are in for such a treat with this amazing, amazing lady. Lucienne, I'd love you to introduce yourself first and foremost, because you will do that in such a beautiful way, because you have such an eloquent way with words. So you kindly introduce yourself. And before you even do that, can you tell us what part of the world you're currently in?
Yes, I will. Well, thanks. First of all, thank you. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to share a bit more about myself and have this beautiful conversation and interaction. Yes, I'm calling in from Lima. I live here part-time with my partner, Argentinian partner, Sergio. So I fly back and forth as much as I can, and he does the same. So we actually see each other quite a lot. And I really love the change of scenery. It really is for me very creative energy. So just move around, and when I'm somewhere else, it just something different happens within me. I just really love it. It's tiring too, but that's true. But I really love it.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
you're in Peru currently, and where is home for you? Where do you class as home?
sorry. Yeah, the Netherlands is home for me. That's where two of the three children live. Yes. So that's still home, and it still feels at home too. Yeah.
Why don't you share with us a little bit about yourself, Lucienne, and we'll get right into why I've invited you today.
Yes. So I call myself a freedompreneur, because freedom is at the heart of everything I do. But that didn't start until 2012. So before that, I was really invested into the normal business life, the career life. I started my own business around 2003. And then in 2012, I was literally shaken up and awakened by total surprise. And that kept me on a journey with, I think, quite a rational background, but being highly sensitive as a person as well. That kind of mixture was always troubling me. But when I had this awakening experience, that really got me into the rational part of things. Like, I really wanted to understand how life works on this planet. And it took me quite a long time to really get that it's actually just a very nice game we need to learn to play. And I really shifted from seeing things a little bit heavy to enjoying the lightness of the game we're playing. And that makes such a difference. Wow. Until actually COVID hit us, and then I got pulled down again and was like, oh, what is happening here? Why are people reacting the way they're reacting? And that brought me actually in a second wave and got me to write my book.
Wow, which we're going to come to in a minute, because that's one of the main reasons. That's how I heard about you, Lucienne, was through your book. So we're going to jump into your book just shortly, because I cannot wait to share with beautiful, beautiful audience all the nuggets of joy and wisdom that you share in this book. But I'm really interested to hear you talk about that you had an awakening way back in 2012. So for some of our audience members, they may have heard of an awakening. Some people might not be so sure what that means and what you mean by that. Would you mind expanding just a little bit more for us, what was going on for you at that time and why you described it as an awakening?
Yes, sure. I had hit a wall. I had my interior design business and it was running smoothly and I had nothing to complain. You know, I had a perfect life, great marriage, lovely children, literally nothing to complain, but everything inside me felt awful. I really felt like something needed to change. I couldn't even tell what it actually was that I wanted to change, but it just felt awful. So I called a friend, and she's a beautiful therapist, and we had a few conversations together. She helped me out in the first bit, but then I felt there was a physical block within my stomach, which was super intense. And then, well, just parallel to that, I felt that my house was at certain areas not super nice, you know, not super comfortable. So I called in a specialist to clear my house, to clear the energies. And he said, well, I can also give you a personal clearing. I thought, like, well, I had no idea what it meant. So I said, okay, let's do that. So we had actually 2 sessions, to make a long story short, just 2 weeks apart. And the first session was already like heart-blowing, literally, because that was the first time that my heart just exploded and was open. That didn't feel light at that moment because I was so confused. I knew that something profound had happened, but I was so confused by the physical experiences. I got really ill for 2 weeks. And so, but I also knew that like there was something about the energy that was different within me. So then after the second session, or during the second session, I woke up literally. I mean, he just did a kind of clearing session with me, so nothing really happened, but inside a lot happened. And then when I woke up, the world looked and felt and smelled and sensed completely different, and it never has gone back to the old version. So that's why I call it awakening, because it felt like I just shifted out of something to I would now say a higher frequency. I didn't use that language back then. So I literally shifted, and I felt like on the moon for months. And I was like, I even love I don't know, the tree around my house, or even the cars that are passing by. I loved everything, and I felt connected with everything.
Wow. So it was almost instant, that instant shift,
Yes.
Because for many people, we're all individual, and we experience things in such a unique way to each one of us. And I guess, hearing, I'm sure that many, many listeners here today will be resonating so much, because we've ticked all the boxes, we've set all these goals, we've achieved them, we've got the perfect family life, we've got the career, we're doing it all, and yet what I'm hearing you sort of describe is something that felt maybe incomplete inside, or something just wasn't right internally, and it took that moment, and then the onset of what that heart awakening was, to really propel you into your next sort of, what I would describe as the next part of your mission, I guess.
The next phase in life. I mean, and it didn't start like a easy ride from the beginning. It was not like, okay, once you're awakened, it's done. No, it's actually, I only got started, but in a totally different way. And it was confusing, because a lot of people didn't understand what happened with me. They sensed there was something different, and I started to talk strange to them. I talked about energies and about the heart and about feeling connected and things like that I never used before. So, but it didn't feel like a warm bath in the beginning, because at that time, specifically in the business world, the word consciousness was like a no-go. And for me, it was like, oh, let's talk about this, this, everybody should hear about this. And I got like these doors in my face slamming, like, no, we're not ready for you. I think it's very different if you are going through a process right now. It is very different. Not better or easier, but I think different.
And I can get why perhaps you wouldn't describe it as such, but some people describe their awakening. I don't know what people's expectation is, but certainly for some, it can feel like a dark night of the soul, because it can be a very lonely process, because it's an individual process that's unique to that person, isn't it?
It is.
And you talk in your book about how your life changed so much that you actually parted ways with your husband, and your life really started to move on in a way that you probably hadn't anticipated. I mean, we can never foresee the future, although we are co-creating a reality, but I guess you would never have anticipated that was going to be one of the things that you had to release and let go of.
No, it took me 5 years even to let go of that marriage.
And
I knew, and I got the message during this phase of awakening. I got the message, and so I knew there was something to change, but I was like, no. I mean, relationships are here to stay, I need to learn this, to integrate this. But it was not meant to be, apparently. So lots of things changed, and like you said, it's the death of the ego, but it's just, or the dark night of the soul, but it doesn't happen once. It happened for me, like probably for you as well. It just happened a few times after that. I mean, perhaps even 10 times. But I had these really, really dark nights, and then wake up again and like, oh wow, I shifted again. So I don't feel like, I mean, there are a few exceptions we know about that are really like going through everything at once and then it's done. I think for most of us, it goes with iterations. And especially in these turmoil, chaotic times that we're living in and have been living in the past couple of years, I think it's almost impossible not to have these iterations, to go through it again and again.
Yeah.
We have
I
so much
often talk
clearing
about
to do.
so much
For
clearing.
humanity, I mean, yeah.
Absolutely, because often I talk about many of us, I feel, have contracted to come stepping into our soul mastery, to be these ascended masters, these amazing beings, bringing heaven to earth and actually healing all the parts of ourselves that have been lost, wandering, fractured, traumatized, and calling it all back home into holiness and into wholeness. So, like you're describing, it can be a repetitive thing. It's that constant rebirthing process, isn't it? It's the next shift, the next elevation on the way. And some of it's really, really triggering. Some of it's really difficult, but it always leads us towards that enlightenment that people talk about, you know, becoming more luminous, letting go, releasing. But I guess what you're describing here is that in the corporate world, it was door closed, door closed. No, we don't talk about this. How did your friends and family respond when you first started to talk differently, become more interested in your own spirituality and those deeper questionings and the answers that you were searching for? Did they think you'd lost your mind?
Yeah, they were friendly with me, but I quickly decided after the first like negative or not so positive responses, I quickly decided to just go within and do my own research. So I literally learned for 10 years straight. Every evening, I just read every book I could think of about various subjects, from biology to quantum physics to deep spirituality to anything I could think of to just really understand it. And I could not find many people around me who could understand that language or were even interested in it. And I think it took me at least 8 years before I could even give words to it that could bridge them with me, kind of thing. But that, I think, is really something for me personal, this challenge to express myself naturally in such a way that it comes across. I know but it's really a personal challenge. I think we all have our personal big themes in life, and this is one of mine. So it was not an easy walk in the park. And with my children, I did not talk about it. I just thought, like, I just live the example and I just let them play with it or not, or whatever it is that they want to do with it, and they come when they're ready. And that's actually how it goes. I mean, they're not all there yet so open, but I can see in their reaction that they have completely opened up to that. And it's beautiful to see that they have their timing and their path, and that's fine. I think that our biggest challenge is because you're so full of this, like, oh, I want everyone to have this, so you want to share about this, but that's not how it works, really.
Absolutely.
Isn't.
And I think when it comes from the heart and you want to share, don't you? Because it's like, wow. But we also have to recognize where we were previously as well. And I love that you're touching on divine timing, especially honoring that in your own children, that they'll come at their own time. And again, you know, I want to go back to, I mean, my past, as many of, you know, the people that are in my world know, that I worked in education for a very long time. And we can think of ourselves as still being childlike, because I worked with young children, and I actually used to say, and I still believe this to this day, that some of the most wise beings that were in that building were the 3-year-olds, because they just knew how to look at the world with eyes of wonderment and curiosity and asked the searching questions and kept asking the whys, and, you know, just even in their play, it was so exploratory. And for me, that was really refreshing, going and spending time with the younger children in our nursery. So let me take you back to when you were a child. Were you just what I would describe as a normal child, just growing up with a family? Were you brought up with spirituality? Were you brought up with religion? What's kind of your background there?
I had a religion background, Christian, Protestant religion background, not with spirituality. I was the youngest of 4, and that's probably why I was told many times, like, yeah, you don't know it, you shut up, you know, like the youngest one often told of. And I remember that I remember being around 2 or 3, with some sessions I did with a therapist, that this came so clearly, that I sat next to my father and I felt his tension around. He's actually, later on in life, he chose the path of spirituality. But I felt with him, being so sensitive, and he had to take over the business of his father, which made him so unhappy and stressful.
Yeah.
And I remember me thinking, like, I'm going to take care of you, Daddy. I'm going to be there for you. And that's actually what I did for like 15 years of my life, to just be there for him as much as possible. But it took me my own journey, you know, it took me myself, because I was too pleasing, too adjusting, and then when I was 18 or 19 years old, and our religion, by the way, was not so strict and very dominant for us, but it was, yes, my mother is a theologist, so she is very much into religion. But anyway, when I was 18 or 19, my father had to sell the business because of health problems. And he asked me to take over. And then I said, like, just it came through to me, like, Father, if I'm going to take over your business, you will be stuck in this business for the rest of your life. And I don't want to happen this to you. Yeah. And I was really ambitious at that moment. I really wanted to be an entrepreneur, because I admired him as well, you know, for being an entrepreneur. And I said, but we should not do that. So in a sense, no, there was no spirituality. And secondly, my mother is very mystical, very mystic person. And my father was very drawn to spirituality. And after he sold the business, he totally went that way. We never got to share our journey, because after he died, I only opened up. Yeah. So it is kind of like, you know, I think the bedding was there, and my youth was really easy and pleasant in many ways. You know, I didn't have a lot of traumas or whatever. And I think that's also another thing I love to just share with people, because a lot of people who go through awakenings often have had a lot of traumas. Yes. Big traumas and big painful issues. And I had for many years after my awakening the question, like, I don't think I'm really awakened, because I haven't had those big traumas. So I haven't really made that shift. I kept telling myself that for so long. Yeah. So in other words, there's so many ways and so many versions, and we're all unique. Yeah, and we all
absolutely. Absolutely. And what you've woven in so beautifully there into your answer is how we have either our perceptions and conditioning and programs everywhere. So within the family, within the spiritual community, within society, within the corporate world. What I'm feeling that you're beautifully describing here is this deepening within and coming back to what was right for you, and letting go of the expectation of your father to take on the business, to really listen to the call of your soul, you know. And this is what this whole show is about. It's about living, learning, and leading with soul. And I just love how we've now got this picture of your journey, of what has really, all of our lived experience makes us who we are, and we're constantly living and we're constantly learning and evolving. But then it's brought you to this point where you had so much that you wanted to share from your heart, that you found another way. So if you were getting closed doors, well, there's another way to talk about how I feel about the big issues in the world, and to prompt the deeper questions. So the book that you wrote was how I came about learning about you, Lucienne. This beautiful book here, The Ripple Effect. Know how powerful you are. I love that. And I'm going to give a shout out to Rosa Maria Marquez, who did your beautiful light transmission here on the front cover. She's an amazing artist. But this book is an absolute, oh my goodness, it's a heart awakening experience in and of itself. Reading the living wisdom that has come through you. When we talk about that through me consciousness, did it feel like that when you were writing the book? Was it just flowing through you? Was it something that you had you planned to write a book? So how did this book
thank you. Now I woke up one day with, like, I have to write a book, and it came out of nowhere, and I didn't see myself as a writer at all. My mother is a great writer, and she always corrected my writing. So, you know, kind of another belief system. So I definitely did not think I was writing a book, but it just kept coming, this call. Wow. And I sat down, I thought, like, okay, well, I'm going to write about, and it was about becoming more aware. I mean, that was the subject. I knew that. And then I thought it was about the relationship. Anyway, long story short, now I started off with a book with the rational version of it.
Yeah.
So I thought like, okay, I have to do this and this, and I learned this, and I have to, it was really like I have to, very, very rational approach.
Yeah.
And nothing worked. And I had my eldest daughter read pieces of it because COVID had started by that time.
Wow.
So she was stuck with me because she studied in the UK. And so she helped me a lot in the beginning. And she kept saying like, Mom, I don't really know what your message is here. I was like, okay, well, I'm apparently not a writer. So but every morning I ask myself the question, do I still feel excited to write? And every morning I got the same answer, yes. And I really was excited when I did it.
Yeah.
The outcome was not so good in the beginning, but I loved the writing in itself. So then all of a sudden, when COVID was like 3 months in, and I already shared, like I was surprised with how the world reacted.
Yeah.
And I was invested in and interested in how the systems work. And with systems, I mean our governments, our health system, political structures, our monetary system, our education system. I was always interested in like, why does it work like that? I think there's so many things wrong with it. Why do people not see it? And why don't we discuss these things together?
Yeah.
So 9/11 was like a big one for me. That's how my journey started into this. And I did this really, really quietly in the background. I didn't talk about this at all because it was like a non-spoken subject.
Yeah.
But when COVID hit, I was like, okay, but this is another level.
Yeah.
So I think it was in May. Yeah, it must have been May. The word came through like, oh, but this is about a double awakening. This is what makes it different. And this is the message I need to share. And with double awakening, I meant I had gone through the personal awakening and I was still going through it because especially around COVID brought a lot of issues back up, which were not cleared in my system at all. and the second awakening for me, what I meant like, especially in spiritual communities, we don't talk often about the systems we live in. And that's so much part of our life and so much bigger part of our life than we actually think. And so I want the reader to become aware of like, what is your role there? Are you aware of your role there? Are you aware of the responsibility you carry when you're part of a society? And are you aware that when things are decided for you, that it is actually a power structure that you might not be aware of? And once you become aware of it, what would you then decide to do? What is good for you, for yourself, and what feels right for you? And then you come into this whole interesting dialogue with yourself, like what is true for me? Not for anyone else, but what is true for me? How can I empower myself to feel what is in alignment for me and be okay with that with people next to me who I dearly love having a complete opposite opinion. And that has been for 2 years a very challenging period for me, and I think for many.
Absolutely.
But it definitely gave direction to my book, that I split it into these 3 levels. Like the being is the inner journey, the connecting is how we relate to each other in all ways, in all versions, not just the intimate relationships, not just the friendships, but also anyone you meet on the street or anyone you work with or your family. And then the 3rd level is the living, like we live in systems, and how aware are we of that? But it's a sensitive subject for many, which surprised me again. So I had the same surprise as in 2012. People like, we're not ready to hear this.
And that, to me, I think still shocks me. I think this is why it's so important that your book is shared so widely, because you don't, so to speak, ram your thoughts down people's throats. It's written in such an articulate and eloquent way that poses the questions. It's a very balanced approach in your book, where people are just guided forward to think, and perhaps think in a way that they haven't thought of before. Because you and I both come from, your background's corporate and interior design. I worked in education. So these are systems that we worked within, where the corporate speak is there, how to behave is there, and without being consciously aware of it, until you bring your conscious awareness to it, that you start to understand how these, let's call them the patriarchal systems, have been set up for a very, very long time, and how even the politics are run, no matter what country you live in, you know, these constructs that have been in place for a very long time to ensure that our minds have been controlled. I mean, even when you look at the word government, you know, even when we start to look at the language that's used, how coercive it is and how conditioned we can be without even being aware of it on a conscious level. And so what I love about this book, Lucienne, is it's written in a way that I think will reach into the hearts of everybody. You know, it's not going to put people off, and I would really implore people to buy your book and to really start to ask the deeper questions and really search within their own heart, because that's where our power lies. And what I love in your book is, you know, you talk about authority and centralization has made us lose our sense of morality. Do you want to explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, this is a very sensitive one. When the power structures outside ourselves, so in our normal daily life, which feels normal for us, are so strong that I almost call it like a false social behavior. We are acting in a false way because we think that we have to do things together, we have to do things for another person, but it's a false way, because the morale, sorry, is not why it's hidden for us, because we are so used to living in these systems and that they're just there, that we don't even question where we are in that system. So we don't even question our morale. I think we think that everybody's a good being. But let me just give you an example. Here in Peru, I think that's a great example. I'm talking to the son of my partner. He's 18 years old. And we have this discussion, like, in Peru, you can't trust anyone. I said, how interesting is that? I said, can I trust you? He said, yes, of course you can trust me. Okay, so what makes you different from anyone else here in Peru? And then he started like, well, nothing really, of course. Okay, so let me ask you the question again. Why can't we trust everyone here in Peru? Well, because we have these stories, and you know, the system is not balanced here, and a lot of people are in poverty, so they use a lot of violence. I said, but if you put this idea about that no one is to be trusted on everyone, you consciously or unconsciously approach everyone with distrust. I said, so I asked him, are you aware of what that does to a person if you approach someone unconsciously like that? Well, he said, must probably feel uncomfortable somewhere. I said, yes. I said, but isn't this the reason why we keep it like this and it's stuck like this? Because it starts within ourselves to open up and trust. And yes, of course, there are people who are, because of the systems, have become in horrible situation, and especially in Peru, you see it daily, that it's tough for them. And I can totally understand it. If you have no money to feed your children, that you become a little bit of a criminal. I totally get it. But it's not the fault of that person in itself. It's the fault of the systems we live in and we keep accepting. And then if you go into that discussion, and this all has to do with morality, because then people say like, yeah, but we can't do anything about the system. I say, really? So who's the system?
We hear this a lot, don't we? We hear this a lot.
Yeah, but we are the system. There's nothing. I mean, if but if I don't vote, still other people will vote. Yeah, but it has to start somewhere. And this is how we keep getting in this vicious circle with no end. And we lose the fact that we're not connected with this morality any longer, that we accept systems to become corrupt. And we accept system to be shown a power over us, which we comply to, which is for sure not in alignment with our deepest heart ethics.
And I love how you've described that so beautifully with that example, because that's taken it right to the societal beliefs. And where does that come from? You know, those generational belief systems that are passed down. And until somebody steps inside the ring and starts to question that and makes somebody to think a little bit differently about it. I mean, how many times have people actually stopped to question things because they think maybe our governments have all our interests at heart? our medical systems have our interests at heart. The education system has our interests at heart. And, speaking from my own example, working in education for such a long time, and don't get me wrong, there are many, many, many good intentioned, loving people.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. And, of course, there are a few exceptions to every rule, but 99% of the people that have gone into education have gone in for all the right reasons, because they want to make a difference. They want to enjoy seeing children thrive and learn and develop and grow as they should. But we're all coming in with our own belief systems, our societal belief systems, and then you get into the corporate world or the education world and you all start to speak that same language. And so what we're doing is we're compounding what is the system without realizing that actually we are the system. We create the system, and that's how it keeps going. And you touched on COVID, and this is when your book came out into the world, and potentially at a time where that could be most triggering for people. And I just admire your courage and bravery to speak so openly, because my spiritual side of me, I had tried to keep that underground. I was this underground healer who was doing readings and healings, because what would people think in education if they found out that, Kelly did this? There were a few people that knew that this was a big part of my life, but I kept that hidden. Why? And then when COVID hit, that's when I really started to think, I am this system. I belong to this system. I am complying with the system. And actually my heart cannot bear what's some of the what's coming out of this situation. It's not all good. And there are things being dictated to me as a head teacher that I cannot be complicit with for a second longer. And so, and it astonished me how so many people just wanted to go along with the things that were being imposed from our government, top down. And we'll talk about the power in a second, where, it's disseminated control from the top, coming down, coming down, coming down, coming down to the individual. And so we think that we're at the bottom of the heap, and that we don't think that we carry the power. And it's almost like atrophy set in. We're almost so apathetic. We're just down here thinking that these structures, these systems, that of course have been planned and put in place to keep us here. But you talk about in your book how let's reverse that pyramid, let's flip it round, and let's remind ourselves actually that we hold the power within us. I wonder if you could talk to that for a little second, Lucienne.
Yeah, I think, and I've experienced this myself in corporate life, anyone who becomes part of the pyramid, wherever you are, as a manager or as a head teacher or whatever you are, you're always in a pyramid kind of structure everywhere in society.
Yeah.
And this feels so normal to us, but once you're in there at a certain level, you adjust yourself to that level, and you're not aware actually that you are constantly looking down on people who are below you.
Yeah.
And you look up at people who are above you.
Yeah.
And that is, I call this almost like a win-lose system. We're constantly like comparing ourselves, like, where am I in this situation? Am I good enough for this right now? Am I comparing myself with someone online? Even is also a pyramid structure, someone with amazing followers, and I feel small compared to them. I put myself below that person. And seeing, without any judgment to anyone in the pyramid, even no judgment towards the top in the pyramid, they can't see what's actually happening, because if you are part of the pyramid, you literally are narrowed down in your perspective, and you can't see more than this one level above, one level below you. And you think that's the reality, but that's only the reality because you're literally, your vision is narrowed to this reality. And I am sure if I would ever had the chance to talk to someone high up in the political power pyramid in a really one-on-one open conversation where that person feels safe, I'm sure the eyes will fall open, or the heart hopefully opens up to see, like, oh wow, there is literally a different perspective to this. It does, because nobody wants to be a mean person. I don't believe that. I don't think either that someone is born in a mean way. We become, because we are adjusting, like you so beautifully shared. I mean, it's compounding on belief system, and we just don't open the eyes. We don't question it. And the fact that we don't question it is, for me, the hardest thing in this COVID times, where I did indeed speak up, and I lost quite a few friends for speaking my truth, or at least what felt true for me. And all I wanted was like, no, I just want to have a dialogue. And yes, I'm strong in my vision, but yes, I've also did some research for 10 years straight. I mean, or even 20 years straight. So, and why are you, even though you love me, you say you love me, like it's very close family member, you say you love me, why aren't you open up to this? Why can't we have this dialogue? And that was, for me, the most difficult thing to accept. Yeah. That I could not really understand why somebody who's so in fear and therefore so narrow-minded, because that's what fear does with us, literally could not open up. Yeah. It was not even that they want to be mean to me. That's how I felt it, of course. Yeah. But they're simply like, it was impossible to open up. And it happened with people very close to me. It was a painful time. And I think it has been for many on both sides.
Yeah. I'm sure it really has. I know in my own experience, that I can relate so much to what you're saying. And, that's why, I was in a previous life called a head teacher. And so much emphasis is put on knowledge and having our heads filled with knowledge. Whereas now, when you start to dig a little bit more deeply and you start to take that inner journey, many of us call it ascension, when actually what we're doing is we're going inward. It's an inward journey, and that deepening into the heart. So I now call myself a heart teacher, because, it's not just about opening our mind, it's about opening our hearts and really being curious. So coming back to those 3-year-olds in the nursery, looking at the world with curious wonderment, they have got it sussed. They know to question adults. They know to question those that are above them in the hierarchy, in the power pyramid. They have no concept of it at all. No. Because, we describe little ones as being in their ego, but actually the ego is there to serve a purpose. And so many ways, it's just, I think of it as your personality, it's your shortcut, it's how you interface with the world. And of course, we all have that. So, I get a wee bit hung up about when people think about the ego as only being a shadow aspect of us. It's there to help us learn and grow, to ask the questions. We wouldn't ask the questions if we didn't have the ego as well. So I love all that you've shared. And, thinking about this power pyramid, I know that you and I are both fans of Richard Rudd's work and the Gene Keys.
He definitely influenced my book.
He really influences my work as well. And for anybody that hasn't heard of Richard Rudd, please check him out as well. But coming back to the pyramid structure, what is your vision for the future? Because I would like us to be heading in a place where we live in the resonance of synarchy, where there is no power struggle, there is no competition, we just all are. Because isn't that really what life is all about? We're here to thrive, we're here to love and learn and grow and just hold each other up and not be looking above or looking below, but holding each other together, hand in hand. What's the vision for you, Lucienne, as the world keeps evolving and keeps growing?
I think if we really understand this simple phrase, we're all equal, but not the same, that will be my vision for the future. Because we are all equal means like everyone deserves the same kind of life and the same, and deserves to be thriving and deserves to be able to explore themselves and develop themselves and unleash their potential and all their gifts, like the Gene Keys shows you so beautifully if you download your profile. But we're not the same, and that's where I think the excitement lies. If we can appreciate how colorful another person is, and just appreciate it because it's their expression of beauty, their expression of gifts, and their expression of being at assistance to the world, because you automatically are if you are unleashing your power. or your potential, sorry, and your inner empowerment, then you are by definition, I wouldn't say at service, but I would say at assistance to the world.
Yeah.
Because you're always first at service to yourself. I mean, you
Absolutely.
are the center. But it's very natural to just want to work with other people and collaborate and co-create and create synergy, and synarchy after that one. But we kind of have to let go of this fear, and it really has to do with not being good enough yourself, not feeling good about yourself.
Yeah.
That you start comparing and judging, and then you don't see each other as equal anymore.
Yeah.
And then you want the other to be the same as you because that feels safe.
Yeah.
So you push the other one down.
Yeah.
So then you at least feel good enough about yourself. That's what we're actually doing. And if we release that sense of win and lose and just go for win-win, just go through your day, and from now on, after you listen to this podcast, and just become very aware where you go into the win-lose and where you step into win-win. Like, okay, this is for me here in this conversation, but what is it for you there? What's it actually you want to get out of this conversation or this task or this collaboration or whatever it is you're doing? Even can be in going to the shop, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's my win to get something in the shop, but it's also a win for them if I'm just kind and open and a pleasant customer and give them the money because I appreciate their products, and don't drag about the fact that it's so expensive. No, it's just an appreciation of what we get in return. So release all this tension about this. Release this tension about money and about, we can have an all other podcast about that one. One of my favorite subjects, money. Because that's another thing. Honestly, I think in the transition period, we need to learn to live with and release a lot of tension around it, because that's really part of the core of why the power structure is still up there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think we'll just have to get you back again, Lucienne. We'll have to talk about money and the energy consciousness that is money as well, and how, like you rightly point out, the power, the uneven distribution of money and power that is perceived to be in the world today. So, I've loved so much about this conversation. I could keep talking to you for, hours after here.
Thank you, likewise.
I would really, really encourage people to read your book, The Ripple Effect, know how powerful you are. If anybody was really inspired after, and I'm sure many people will be, Lucienne, after listening to you in conversation with me today, and they don't know where to begin, they think, well, I've never had a spiritual awakening. I'm just doing the 9 to 5. But I'm not feeling fulfilled. I don't have time to read all these books. Time is of the essence. What would your recommendation be to them? Because you've woven in what I love inside your book as well. You've got living workshops, so it's like this. It's like a little handbook in some ways, for people to kind of have a companion with them as they go along their life. But just in brief synopsis, what would you say to somebody that is intrigued? You've now awakened their curiosity. What can they do as that right next step?
Gratitude. Go fully into being grateful for what you have in life right now, and make it very detailed. Do this practice every day, in the morning and in the evening before you go to bed, and be grateful for what there is. And you will notice when you are being grateful, it's not for nothing something beautiful comes out of religion. Many beautiful things come out of religion. It's not all bad. and praying to someone outside yourself, I don't think is really helpful, but praying towards yourself and to the life you live, in that sense, being grateful for what there is, it immediately will lighten you up. It literally does. It's a very, and if you, what helps as a guidance is just pick a stone somewhere. Doesn't have to be a crystal, can just be a beautiful stone or something you feel attracted to, and sit with that stone every time you are doing your gratefulness practice. And really write it down. Every day 10, and just add the next day 10 more, and the next day 10 more, and you will be surprised about how many things in life already, even if your life doesn't feel thriving at all, there are so many things to be grateful for. Absolutely. I can be grateful about a glass of water. Absolutely. I can literally sense into that and just like, I feel so grateful that I can drink this water. And then you I think it's a way to open the heart.
Yeah.
And if you open your heart, you are awakening.
Yeah.
Let's not make this one big thing. I mean, perhaps I was lucky to be pulled out of my current life at that time in 2012 and had that experience. But like I said before, it didn't stop there. It only got started. And if you open your heart and connect with that consciously every day with this grateful experience and just try to sense inside, like, do I feel anything here? And read the one book. If anything, you need to read one book. For me, as like my Bible is the book of Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. I mean, he beautifully describes in very much detail how you can start finding this inner self within you.
Yeah.
But
and that's one of my bookshelf, can I say?
Yeah. And you can read that one 10 times as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess with my book, if for people who do read it, if it's really new for you, take it in small pieces.
Yeah.
And sit with the pieces and don't do it all in one go, because I do realize I might have actually should have written like 2 or 3 books out of this one. Was a little bit too much in one go. For me, not, but I think for some people it can be. And make it light.
Yeah.
Make it light, play with it,
Yeah.
and practice with yourself and become aware of how you act in daily life. Just observe yourself like, oh, did I do that? Oh, I was not very nice to that person. Okay, well, I was not very nice. Okay, well, next time I try to be nicer.
Yeah.
That's the lightness we need to have.
Exactly. Oh, I've so loved this conversation, and I know that it will have sparked so much inspiration in others, Lucienne. I'm so grateful for you, and for you. Thank goodness you wrote this book. It's such a
thank you.
read, and one that I continue to go back to time and time again. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll pop all your details so that all our viewers and listeners can find you. Do you have a website, Lucienne?
Yes, it's just my name, luciennekoops.com.
Beautiful. Yes. And I'll make sure that I put that down below, and I'll put your social media links and where people can buy your book as well. So thank you so much, Lucienne.